deliver in partnership with UK Trade Investment and a range of other strategic partners across Poland and across the CE region. My name is Patrick Nain, I'm the Director of the British-Polish Chamber of Commerce Trade Team, and in our own way, we've encapsulated some of the innovation which we've been talking about today. We are the first British business centre in 41 markets around the world. There will be British business centres helping British exporters and investors to access and understand opportunities in markets where the UK government sees a huge amount of opportunity for British companies. And nowhere, I think, is that more true than in Poland, and nowhere is that more true than in the healthcare and life sciences sector in Poland. So it's been an absolutely fantastic occasion today. I know you've had an action-packed day. I promise you we're not going to have a death by PowerPoint, but what we would like to do is introduce today some speakers who are going to talk about the sector in a little bit more detail. And after each speaker does their presentation, I'm going to have to whisk them upstairs because we're dedicated to making sure as many businesses as possible can find out about opportunities here in the Polish market. And whilst everybody here is enjoying themselves, drinking and eating and having a good time, I'm unfortunately doing none of those things because we'll be having a webinar for over 25 British companies who want to also find out about the sector here in Poland. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers for the next 10 to 20 minutes. We've got a fantastic lineup. I'd like to pay tribute to Dagmara Kowalik, who's organised this element of the day. We'll be hearing from Maria Pawłowska, who's the Healthcare and Life Sciences Officer at the British Embassy in Warsaw. There's nobody who knows more about business opportunities in this sector than Maria. We'll also then be hearing from Mariusz Ignatowicz, who's the Team Leader for Pharma and Life Sciences at PwC. PwC are a key partner of ours, absolutely fantastic strategic support for British companies out here in the market. And then, perhaps most importantly, we'll be hearing from British businesses that have been there and have done that. You'll be hearing from Professor Andrew Haig, who's the President of Cellsonic, and meanwhile our webinar participants will be talking with Thomas Schott from a really fantastic British company, a great example of how to make it here in the Polish market, Randox Laboratories. So ladies and gentlemen, without further delay, I'd like to hand over the microphone to Dr. Maria Pawłowska from the British Embassy in Warsaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. And I'd actually, just a small correction, I'm not actually the Health and Life Sciences Officer, I'm the Science and Innovation Officer, which is a little relevant to what I'm going to say, because I only collaborate with UKTI. I'm not actually part of the UK Trade and Investment team, so just a kind of forewarning. And this is what I actually am. As part of the Science and Innovation Network, and the officers in the Science and Innovation Network, go around this way, based all around Europe and beyond, we try and make the links both between the science in our host countries and British science, as well as the innovation part. And the innovation part is basically what we've been talking about all day today, including the teaming bid. And I think the teaming bid that just been announced today between Cambridge and Warsaw University is a great example of how science and innovation actually are really important when it comes to things like trade. Because that bid is worth about 80 million euro, and that 80 million euro is going to be spent also on very innovative equipment, for example. So as part of my work, I not only work with universities, but also with innovative companies. And I'm going to talk to you today about, just outline some of the funding opportunities available in Poland. And this presentation and this work is a collaboration between me and my colleagues in UKTI, who specialize more in the kind of business-oriented funding, while I'm more on the kind of science and innovation funding. So there's Initech, which is dedicated to supporting both academia and companies in R&D, and its aim is to encourage companies to invest in R&D. And there's the innovative technology and the high technology stream. Then there are programs funded by the National Center for Research and Development, NCBR, which are Bridge, CatTech, and Innovation Creator. Bridge has just recently launched their next round of bids and is open to anyone who's interested, and I'd really recommend firstly checking up their website and then coming to us if you have any further questions. Finally, to continue, there's the EU Operational Program funding, which includes all sorts of funds, but what's interesting is that in Poland, just over 40% are going to be dedicated to enterprises who want to fund innovative projects in collaboration with academia. There's also supporting innovation within companies and supporting the business environment around innovative ideas. Finally, there's Horizon 2020, which is actually the area I specialize in. And Horizon 2020 is this huge pot of money basically waiting for the picking. And what's important about Horizon 2020 is that it's really hard to get in on the money on your own. And by on your own, I also mean if you're just got partners from one single member state. So it's a good idea to partner up, and it's an even better idea to partner up across old Europe and new Europe. That's what Brussels really likes. It likes to see how we're not just keeping it to the Western countries who have already made it, let's bring in the guys who are still trying to get there. So that's some of the ideas behind Horizon 2020. And the three pillars of the program are excellence in science, industrial leadership, and societal changes. And I'm sure that all of you have ideas that fit somewhere within those three pillars, because the idea was for those three pillars to be very broad. Now, participants can include companies, research organizations, universities, la-di-da-di-da. There's a whole bunch of institutions who can apply, and it's really worth looking into both the calls that are issued by the European Commission and the in-country possibilities. So the rules of applying for the funding are, as with most of these kind of European proposals, there's a whole lot of rules that need to be read through and a ton of kind of fine print you need to read through. But the important thing is that there's a large variety of opportunities and the calls are ongoing. So basically if you haven't done this already, it's really worth, if you're interested in these sorts of things, staying on top of the calls that are coming out in the respective area you're interested in. Finally, what the Commission has done following the previous framework program is simplified the financial model and made the rules more precise, which is really kind of good news because it just means that they're trying to make this easier. It's still a lot of paperwork and it's still really important to tick all the boxes and kind of stay within the lines, but apparently it's supposed to be easier this time around, so go get them kind of thing. And Patty promised not to kind of kill you by PowerPoint. I kept it short and you can now enjoy your kind of caviar and quill eggs.
More presentations.
Or you will be able to do that after the next person finishes talking. And I am now to kind of go away, so I'll leave you. If you kind of have any questions later on, I'll probably be milling around. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Dr. Miriam Pawłowska. And it's my pleasure now to introduce Mariusz Ignatowicz, Team Leader of the Pharmaceuticals. I hope I got the title right at PwC.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. So, once again, I'm in a situation when I'm the only one between caviar and yourself. Mariusz Ignatowicz, I'm leading the pharma and healthcare team in Poland and CEE. I may say that I grew up with the UK investors with this in this area because I remember working for GSK in the middle of 90s when they bought Poznan manufacturing site, and I was working recently for Bupa when they acquired Laxmed on a provider side. So that's nothing I would say unusual for me to work for the investors from. Oh, thank you very much. From UK in that sector. Very briefly, because I understand that we've got certain time limits. So why still I consider the Polish healthcare sector is interesting for the investors. First of all, there are some generic factors which have impact on such a recommendation. First one is definitely that it is growing still quite rapidly, and it's 100 billion Polish zlotys worth. 30% of that is, as you may have heard already, is private spendings. These private spendings are also depending on the sector or subsector of the healthcare area. They are also growing rapidly, and we believe that this pace will be maintained in the nearest future. And recently, something which is absolutely important, that the public payer, which do not have a proper alternative at that moment, is willing more and more to accept the private spendings. Of course, there are exceptions, and the dispute is still pending, but we believe that generally the tendency is that there is no other choice for the national payer than to accept the private providers, private investors in the sector, which is very common already in pharmaceutical, but not in the healthcare provision area. There are some specific sub-sector issues, and the, let's say, attractiveness of the investment depends on the where in the supply, when in the value chain your actual potential investment will be made, then the return may be of course different. There is still, as I said, huge overwhelming participation in the funding on the side of the public player, but there are some areas which, first of all, are quite okay priced, and you can just simply tell that having looked at the growth of particular private investment in these particular areas. Secondly, there is long-awaited privatization of the public healthcare providers. There is more than 700 of public hospitals still awaiting first transformation, then privatization. Long time ago, the promise was that it will be done already. It has not been done, and unfortunately, it may still take a time. But once again, there is no choice but to do that, because there is not enough money in the system to maintain the current model. And when we are talking about the innovation and investments, that's why I mentioned the investments in this particular area, because it's not only like innovative product, etc., but all those institutions, especially public institutions, desperately are looking for something like the operational effectiveness. They are looking for some organizational changes, for the managerial skills to be increased. So when we are talking about the innovation should be understood as broadly as possible in this regard. Then I got something which simply, I don't know whether we've got proper focus. I prepared something like the walk through the particular therapeutic areas or the subsectors of the healthcare, but I would not go for that in the details. We may discuss it in the details after my presentation, or you can have a look at the documents which I provided. But few conclusions. First of all, as I said, according to the predictions which have been prepared by the National Healthcare Fund together with the Ministry of Health, the public fundings will unfortunately do not match with the expenses already next year. That's the prognosis which have been already provided. So they are forced to a certain extent to seek for some investments, and they are more and more open. Unfortunately, we are facing the election this year and the next year, and as you understand, that's usually something disruptive for the investors and for the decision, especially on the public side. But there are some areas which are very attractive. We've got a number of questions from the potential investors, something like the elderly care, something like the cardiovascular surgery. These potential areas are of interest for many investors. So the general conclusion, I don't want to go through the details, but the general conclusion is, yes, there are first of all many targets. There is a lot of work to be done in order to help the whole sector, especially public sector, to get transformed. And the innovation, as I said, should be understood as broadly as possible, and not only as a PR, as R&D activity. Thank you very much. I'm entirely yours. I will be staying here for a while, and I'll be happy to address any queries. Thank you.